Carlos Tevez began his playing career in his home nation of Argentina, playing for Boca Juniors. He began featuring in the side's first team during the 2001-02 season. However, he only broke through the following campaign, where he'd amassed 11 goals in 32 games as a 19-year-old. He'd carry this form into the following season, cementing himself as one of South America's most exciting talents, with fans even hailing him as the heir to the great Maradona. In the middle of the 2004-05 season, he jumped ship to Brazilian powerhouse Corinthians for roughly around $20 million, having signed a record-breaking 5-year deal worth £6.85 million. It seemed as though the chances of Tevez signing for a European club were slimming. He would be given the captain's armband immediately. For a Brazilian club to trust a 21-year-old Argentinian as captain in his first season would be enough pressure for most young players to crumble under. Tevez wouldn't though. In fact, he shone, registering 20 goals in his first and only full campaign, ending the season as Campeonato Brasileiro champions. Carlos would also become the first foreigner to win the league's Best Player award since 1976. He became a fan favourite and hero within the city instantly. But as we all know, Tevez loves a bit of controversy and likes to give his own fans the middle finger sometimes. So in the middle of the 2006 season, he began refusing to play for the club in an attempt to force a move to Europe. This guy really signed one of the most valuable contracts in Brazilian sports history and decided to rip it up after one full season. Crazy. Now full attention shifted to where he would go next. Madrid, Paris, maybe even London? Well, if you'd predicted the latter, you would have been correct. But where in London? Chelsea? No. Arsenal? No. Spurs? No. To everyone's shock, on the 31st of August 2006, Tevez announced on his website that he would be joining West Ham United alongside fellow Argentinian youngster Mascherano. How much would West Ham have to have paid to get Corinthians to give up a player that they had for 4 more years? Well, we wouldn't get the answer. Both the Tevez and Mascherano fees were undisclosed. He'd make his debut off the bench in a game against Aston Villa. However, it was clear that this wouldn't be the perfect honeymoon that West Ham fans initially expected. After Tevez's debut, the Hammers would go on a 9-game winless streak, which contained 8 defeats and only 1 draw. This plummeted West Ham well into the relegation zone. And in November, Tevez's problematic attitude would begin to show as well, after he threw a tantrum and then left the ground early after being substituted off against Sheffield United. As punishment, he was made to donate half a week's wages to charity and train in a Brazil shirt. He refused to do so. He wouldn't get his first start until the new year, in January of 2007. Under the new management of Alan Kirbishley in a 3-0 FA Cup win over Brighton, and he would finally get his first goal for the club in March, as well as registering 2 assists in a 4-3 loss to Spurs. The floodgates were now open. However, the following month, the club would be fined £5.5 million by the Premier League for breaching rules over both the signings of Tevez and Mascherano. Despite this, Tevez was actually cleared to continue playing in the Premier League. A very controversial decision, as rules stated that the registration of Carlos should have potentially been terminated. As his form improved, he would be given the Hammers Player of the Year for helping West Ham achieve the Great Escape. However, the job wasn't done yet. West Ham would have to beat the champions Manchester United to stay in the top flight. And in injury time of the first half, Tevez would score the sole goal of the game, securing safety for West Ham, ending the season with his 7th goal in the Premier League. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, as 141 miles up north, Sheffield United had been relegated as a result of Tevez's goal.
Just to see him celebrating on the pitch now, it's very, it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, doesn't it? But it's only the same. We can blame everybody, really, can't we? Like I say.
As many know, getting relegated from the Premier League to the Championship can have detrimental financial effects on the club. Therefore, it's no surprise that the Blades felt very, very hard done by, considering that the transfer of Carlos Tevez should have never even happened. As a result, the club would appeal to be reinstated into the Premier League at the expense of the Hammers. However, this would be rejected by the Premier League, but Sheffield United wouldn't give up. They wanted justice, so instead they sought damages from West Ham. Reports suggested that the club demanded a compensation worth up to £30 million. A year later, the court ruled that Sheffield United had the right to receive compensation for their relegation in the campaign prior. So on the 17th of March 2009, the 2-year saga would finally come to an end, where the clubs agreed that West Ham would pay Sheffield United £4 million for the following 5 seasons, resulting in a £20 million total. Oh, and I forgot to mention that whilst these two clubs were fighting over Tevez, the guy wasn't even at the club anymore, having left only one season into a stint in London for Manchester United. And funnily enough, he also managed to piss off the Reds as well, leaving for Manchester City in the summer of 2009. This story is a perfect anecdote to put Carlos Tevez into a nutshell. An extremely talented player, but in many cases, the antics he brings off the pitch outweigh the ones he brings on it. And of course, in many other cases, it does quite the opposite.